So we're going to do something different again. We're trying something different. A franchise series. So basically pick a franchise and talk about all the films within that franchise and maybe anything else surrounding it. And this week, we had a comment. Basically said she'd seen Evil Dead 2 for the first time. She'd never seen it before. I think we may have mentioned it in a video somewhere. I don't know. Maybe that's not why she saw it. I don't know. But she has asked if we could maybe talk about it. So we thought, everyone's seen Evil Dead 2. Obviously, we've just gone through Halloween. Mm-hmm. So why don't we start? We've been talking about this franchise idea. So why don't we kick off with the Evil Dead franchise? Because it's a great series and there's not loads of them.
No.
There's obviously 3 of them and then a remake and a TV show as well. And maybe the other thing that's come out around it. We're gonna just talk about that. We don't want it to go on for too long. Obviously, this is a first. This is a trial run of this idea. So we'll try and keep it,
brief.
Yeah, exactly. It shouldn't be too hard because they are essentially all the same.
Yes.
Film, kind of.
Kind of.
But I shall hand it over to you, and you can talk a little bit about the plot, maybe.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
So it's about dead things that are evil.
It is.
So, if you don't know what Evil Dead's about, basically, the original stars Bruce Campbell and some other people. Obviously, Bruce is the main man. They go to a cabin in the woods and unleash some evil accidentally.
Yeah, and some evil stuff happens.
Yes, it does, yes. The woods come alive and attack them and people get possessed and all sorts of crazy stuff happens and limbs get lopped off. Originally it was like a video nasty back when it was released. Well, in the UK it was anyway. It was caught up in all that.
I think it came from the Obscene Publications Act from the 60s or something like that had been put in by the government. And then in the 80s, of course, you had the introduction of VHS, which meant people could now watch films in their homes at any given time. And, of course, the powers that be, I think specifically over here, was Mary Whitehouse, who was very little, friendly old lady. Who hated everything.
Yeah.
Usually anything that had sex, violence, anything like that. Yeah. So this film and many others. I don't think this was the first, but it was one of the most famous ones that was basically banned. And this is from a time in the 80s where if something was banned, that was it. You couldn't get your hands on.
So it wasn't impossible to see, but it was difficult.
Exactly.
But it was. I think it was Sam Raimi's second film, was it?
So it was his first feature. He'd done a few shorts. Within the Woods is the famous one, because Within the Woods is I think it's like 20 minutes long. It's a very loose similarity to what then became Evil Dead. So this was his first feature film, and he put it together with lots of. I think they managed to get their funding from doctors and dentists and people like that, and put all this money together and went out and made this film. Compared to the others, it's quite cheap and it's not comedic either, which obviously the other ones.
No. Ash is not. Obviously the Ash that we know now, from the TV show and Army of Darkness and things like that, is a lot more slapstick and funny. But it's not. The original isn't really like that.
No, the comedy really comes in with the second one.
Yeah.
That's, a lot of people love the original one. The first one I ever saw was the third one.
Yeah, me too, yeah.
I'd never heard of them until then. Like I said, probably it was quite hard for us to see these films, but when the second one came out, I was way too young to see it anyway. So Evil Dead 2 is like a remake of the first one.
Kind of, yeah.
They got rid of the friends that go with him. It's just him and his girlfriend at the beginning of the film. They quickly kind of run through some of the stuff that goes on in the first one, in the second one. The girlfriend is different actor this time. And then they bring in some different characters.
Yeah.
So you have... basically the Book of the Dead is the book that unleashes this evil, and the man who's found the book, who owns the cabin, it's his daughter that comes looking for it, and she's got I don't know if she's a boyfriend or a working partner or something, and on the way to the cabin to find her parents, they come to this bridge that's kind of all folded up and they can't get past. They meet this guy, this redneck guy, and his girlfriend, and then they all
head to the
cabin for some fun, nighttime fun, and then it basically is. It's more full on than the original one, and it's I mean, so like I said, I saw Army of Darkness first, and then I guess came on to Evil Dead 2, and then Evil Dead 2 blew me away. I mean, so Evil Dead 2 for me is like my favourite horror film of all time. I can't get enough of it. I've seen it so many times. I just love that film. And so, you know, the young lady asking what we think of it, I love it. It's so over the top.
Yeah.
It's so funny, and it's, you know, and I love violent comedy. You know, I'm a huge fan of. So Sam Raimi took a lot of inspiration from the Three Stooges, which I have to say I was never the biggest fan of. I was more into people like Laurel Hardy, but I also love the Marx Brothers, and there's definitely a few jokes in here which I'm sure have either been, you know, inspired by the Marx Brothers. There's a famous mirror scene in one of the Marx Brothers films, and there's a mirror joke in this as well. But also, I'm a big fan of Rick Mayall and Bottom and the Young Ones, and that really violent anarchic comedy, which this has, you know, to the rafters. It's just all over it. And here you also really get to see Bruce Campbell become Ash. And there's that whole sequence. It's just before the other people get to the cabin, and he's like he's going psychotic, and all these, you know, the house comes alive and tries to kill him off. And it's just amazing, and it just looks like it would have been so much fun to make that film. There's a great making of that, and it just looked like completely over the top. Hot, apparently they were filming in a very hot location, and they didn't enjoy it as much as they could have done because they were too hot most of the time. But it's just I could talk about it till the cows come home because I just absolutely love it. Do you like it as much as I do?
I don't think I've seen it as many times as you. No. I mean, again, like we said, I came to Army of Darkness first, and I think that's my favourite. And Army of Darkness picks up basically where Evil Dead 2 leaves off. He gets transported back in time to medieval England, and unwittingly, again, unleashes the Evil Dead.
He's not very clever.
No, he's a rubbish hero.
Dumb hero.
Yeah, and it's obviously, you know, it's got a much bigger budget, although obviously California is probably standing in for England.
Yeah, because so it is. They go back to this castle, and they meet these he meets these 13th century soldiers and kings and whatnot in this castle that looks not like a British castle at all. Yeah, it's clearly in America.
Yeah,
something. But it's too dusty for England.
It is, yeah. But it's, you know, it's still enjoyable, and it's, you know, of all the films, because it's so Ash is such a quotable character, and most of these quotes come from Army of Darkness.
They do, don't they? Yeah. He's not. There's not as many. It's more. It's. I think in the second one, it's more that kind of slapstick visual, which is in this third one as well. But the third one's got all the quotes that you know. Boomstick and...
Give me some sugar, baby.
Give me some sugar.
Groovy and all that stuff.
All that stuff comes from the third one. Like I said, I saw that one the first. I had it on VHS, and we just watched it. Like religiously watched it over and over again. Because again, it was, you know, if you come from the 80s or 90s and you watched all those films, you know, it was all practical effects back then.
Yeah.
And you loved how that stuff was done, and you wanted to know how it was done. They clearly loved cinema. They loved film, and they were having a go with it and playing around and seeing what they could get away with. Is some amazing stop frame animation.
Yeah.
I mean, the stuff with the skeletons at the end. There's this amazing battle sequence at the end between all the soldiers in the proto-British castle and the Evil Dead themselves, and they kind of all become these skeletons that come up from the cemetery.
I mean, it's great. You know, some of the shots you've got puppets in the foreground.
Yeah.
And in the background you've got guys in suits, obviously quite, you know, dressed as skeletons, and you got, you know, it's all just works so well.
Yeah, but it all works well together. But you've got that classic stop motion skeleton that you would have got in things like Clash of the Titans back in the the 50s, 60s, and they've all got hilarious voices as well. They've got these like crazy American voices.
For skeletons, they're quite expressive, aren't they? Yeah.
Very expressive. And you've got like I said, I think the Three Stooges stuff is more in this one. So there's a scene where he goes to the windmill.
Yeah.
And he breaks a mirror, and of course it crashes to the ground. And there's all little ones, because of course the mirror joke is from the second one, so he doesn't want his. Well, you would have seen that. And so all these little ones come out the shards of glass. and he has this fight with lots of little ashes, and there's lots of Three Stooge type gags, poking. Well, that's later, isn't it? With the that's in the cemetery, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, so yes, I think this one's got more Three Stooge humour going on in there anyway, and it's quite painful. This one there's a lot more nails through feet and. I would if you haven't seen these films, then go and see these films. They did then a few years ago. They went and remade it.
The
first one they remade. Unfortunately, I absolutely hated the thing. No redeeming, nothing in there. I kind of wanted to like it. I mean, I know it wasn't. A lot of people were saying it's lost all the comedy from it.
But then the original one
didn't have that anyway, and this is not. It's not a remake of the second one. It's a remake of the first one. But and again, and I guess so many films have come out since Evil Dead. We've seen a lot of this stuff before. I don't think it added anything new. I think it tried to be too horrific. Although it wasn't scary. A lot of people said it was really terrifying. Didn't scare me in the slightest.
I mean, I think again, it's one of the. If you've seen lots and lots and lots and lots of horror films. It's difficult to these days to find something that really does scare you because you have seen so many things and you kind of know when the scares are coming, and if you've seen ridiculously gory films, then it's difficult to find something that is shocking in something like that.
I don't watch as many horror films nowadays as I used to. Certainly not, and that might be part of it as well. I kind of either become desensitized to these things. I do know I'm getting to a point now where I just can't sit through these violent horror films. It's too violent, and it's not that it's like I'm not going, oh, it's too violent. It's just like, oh, it's too violent. It felt like it was trying too hard to be controversial. I kind of wonder, can you still be controversial in cinema?
It's harder.
Like we said, the original Evil Dead was in a time where you could ban a film and no one could see it. We don't live in that world anymore. You physically can't ban a film anymore because someone would release it onto the internet and people would see it. We don't live in that kind of that world of censorship anymore.
Well,
which is
somewhere like China or Iran or something
somewhere like there, certainly yes. No, that's true. But we live in the West and we don't have that hanging over us anymore, which I have to say is a good thing. I don't think censorship is a good thing at all for anything. But I just felt at times they were trying to be too controversial. There were a couple of moments where they kind of riffed on The Exorcist and some of the dialogue in The Exorcist. A few, devil-related moments. I think he spits out something about his sister or his mother doing things to people in hell. And I just thought, well, we've been there. The Exorcist did that, and The Exorcist did it a lot better. You've got this character that's supposed to be a heroin addict. She didn't look like a heroin addict to me. If you want a horrific film about heroin addiction or getting off heroin, go and watch Trainspotting, and that's got some horrific moments in it, which is horror, which is more like horror. It's not a horror film. I didn't care about the characters. It's the witch type with the hair down. It's from The Ring. It's just like, no, terrible. That's it.
I didn't hate it as much as you did. I think it does do things slightly differently. The ending is I think the ending does add something new that hasn't been seen in any others.
Right.
And it wasn't, they didn't try and copy the Ash character, which I think was a good move. I thought the effects were quite good, although you seem to think there was lots of CGI. I don't know. I think there was practical stuff in there. But no, it's not perfect. It did have its problems. I mean, in the original Evil Dead, the way they, obviously the Necronomicon, has passages in it that raise, that call this evil on, and the way that they accidentally unleash this evil is by playing a tape of the guy who's reading from the book, which makes sense. They were just listening to this thing. Whereas in the remake, the guy who finds it just reads from it, even though it's got scribblings in it, saying don't read this and things like that. He still just reads it out, and it just felt a bit lazy. I think there's good stuff in there, but there's also a lot of maybe lazy stuff or stuff that doesn't really fit. It's okay, but
I know a lot of people enjoyed it. I've read a lot of reviews. A lot of people really did like it.
I think there's far worse remakes out there.
I'm sure there are. I don't know. Maybe I haven't seen them, but I just no. For me, I hate because and it's not even because I absolutely adore the original ones. I mean, because I liked the director's other film, Don't Breathe. I did like that one, and I thought that was doing something different and interesting, which is why I thought I might go for this. But I'm afraid, no, I didn't like it at all. Nothing in there was good. Nothing.
Okay. And then,
I mean, there's the thing. So we have Evil Dead 2, right?
Yeah.
And then we go on, we get this massive sequel, and everyone knows Ash. Mm-hmm. Everyone knows Ash.
Yep.
Can you remember anyone from this one?
No.
It's going to be forgotten in a couple of years. There's no other one. They're not doing any others, are they?
I don't know. There was rumours of another one. Whether that's going to happen, I don't know. I mean, there was rumours that it was going to sort of join up with the original films. How they would have done that, I don't know. But I don't think that's going to happen now. Obviously, we've had the TV show Ash versus Evil Dead.
Yes, which I haven't seen. I saw the first episode, which I enjoyed, but I know.
I mean, I think again, it's very. It's weird because I don't think they had the rights to sort of reference Army of Darkness because because they were made by different studios. The rights around these films are very complicated.
But, because that's one of the reasons I think they redid the beginning of Evil Dead 2. They didn't have the rights to Evil Dead.
Yeah,
couldn't get the rights to the original one.
Yeah, he doesn't reference Army of Darkness at all, unfortunately. But I'd say that Ash in the TV show is more like the Ash from Army of Darkness. It's just ridiculous and slapstick and that. And I think because he is like that in Evil Dead 2, but it really steps up a notch in Army of Darkness, doesn't it? And that's the Ash that we get in the TV show, but it doesn't. It sort of follows on from Evil Dead 2, kind of.
Right.
It doesn't. It kind of just doesn't really mention it. He's just living in a trailer park, having fought evil in his youth and only having one hand. But no, it's really good. I mean, the gore is ridiculous in it, and yeah, it's just as over the top as as the movies basically. Because on certain cable channels, I think it was on Stars, I think you can get away with these things because they're allowed to do whatever they want basically, and it's hilarious. Unfortunately, it was cancelled after 3 seasons, although I think they knew enough in advance that they wrapped it up, and since it was cancelled, Bruce Campbell said he's not going to be Ash anymore. He's retired from being Ash. I mean, there are comic books that follow Ash, and
a few bad video games over the years.
Yeah. So there's plenty of places to get your Ash fix if you've watched all the movies.
Just do what I did and just rewatch Evil Dead 2
exactly.
over and over and over and over and over again. I don't watch it as much now than I used to. But it used to be like a staple film to show friends. That was that and Brain Dead. Which I mean, both of those films are obviously quite, they're quite similar. In fact, yes, if you haven't seen Brain Dead, or Bad Taste, go and watch either of those two because they're nice. They're their own follow-ons from Evil Dead. They're treading very similar territory, but they do something different with it. And obviously, it's Peter Jackson we're talking about. They do their own things with it. But so whenever I friends wanted to. Just suggest because you're a horror freak. Suggest one of these two. And amazing how many people had never seen Evil Dead 2. Brain Dead, not so surprising, but amazing how many people also didn't really like it either. They thought it was just too much for them, or it was too over the top, or too zany, and they either wanted horror or they wanted comedy. They didn't want the two stuck together.
No.
Which is a shame because I think the interesting thing with horror and comedy is that. I always find, some horror films can be so horrific. It can be quite hard to sit through. I think, especially over recent years, we've had films like Martyrs and, stuff like that. What was that lovely one in the 80s? Necromantic. Do you ever see that?
No, but yeah, I know what you mean.
Almighty. The trouble, if you've actually gone looking for a lot of these video nasties, which I did, then, you would have seen quite a few horrific things over the years. Whereas when you chuck some comedy in it, because the whole thing with horror is that if you're in, you're at cinema or something like that, and you see something scary, you laugh because laughter takes away that kind of almost that fear, and that's a lot of ways people get through fear is by laughing. And so if you make horror comedic as well, I think it can work, in its favour. And there have been some great horror comedies over the years. Obviously, like I said, Bad Taste and Brain Dead are two very, quite comical horror fests, although Brain Dead is slightly more revolting than the Evil Dead films. And then of course Shaun of the Dead and I mean, even Nightmare on Elm Street kind of started to go the comedy route over
bit,
time,
yeah,
didn't it? You know, Freddy Krueger became a bit of a joke on himself. Some of it sometimes worked, sometimes didn't. So yeah, big fan of these films. So they obviously are very famous films, all three of them. So there have been numerous releases over the years. I've had them all on VHS originally, and then DVD, and now Blu-ray. I had them all separately, and then just the other day I went out and picked up the trilogy on Blu-ray as well. It's just a standard thing. But you've got some nice ones on Blu-ray, don't you, or DVD?
Well, Evil Dead, obviously that was originally shot in the 4:3 ratio. So I got the Blu-ray, the US Blu-ray, which has got that version and the widescreen version, which obviously is cropped. I mean, it was done by approved by Sam Raimi, so it's, you know, they've done a good job of it, and it's not like people's heads are chopped off or anything like that. But I just wanted to have that, you know, the option to watch either version. I think all three have been released ridiculous amounts of time. I think that you know, Evil Dead films and maybe Halloween have had, you know, just a ridiculous amount of releases over the years, and I've probably bought quite a few of them. So, you know, I've still got on DVD. You know, there was a Book of the Dead edition, which, you know, was basically a little replica of the Book of the Dead from the film. So I hung on to that, because it looks cool, and it's got all the extras on it as well. Well, most of the extras. I think Evil Dead 2, I've just got the normal. I've probably got the same edition that you've got. And then, although I think that's just recently, or it's either just been released or is going to be released soon on 4K. I don't know how good the picture is going to be, but presumably all right. Otherwise, I wouldn't bother. You would like to think. An Army of Darkness. I mean, that has several different cuts of the film. So you've got the original theatrical version for the US, then you've got a director's cut, then you've got an international version, which I think was what was shown in cinemas like here, maybe in Australia as well.
Yeah, because obviously we didn't mention, because so Army of Darkness obviously has a couple of endings.
Yes,
and we saw one over in this country in the UK, and the Americans saw the other one,
yes,
which is actually the one that I watched. It's now on my disc.
Yeah,
my version of Army of Darkness doesn't have the one. Or does it? It does have it, but it's a very bad. It has not a restored version of it. Like VHS or something.
So there's also a TV cut as well. I've got the Scream Factory Blu-ray, which has got it's got those 4 cuts on it. But the only version, the one we had on VHS was, I think, was the only place that version was released. Basically, it was the international version, but with the alternate ending. So, you know, the ending that most people know is he's just in he's back in S Smart, and then suddenly a deadite comes at him, and that's the ending that everyone. But I didn't know that ending. No, because I'd never seen it, because I'd only had the VHS, and there's an ending where he goes forward in time, and that was why I always held out hope for an Army of Darkness 2, because it was a cliffhanger, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I mean that like yours, that ending is on the disc, but it's not remastered or anything, and you can't watch the film with that ending. Right. So while it's got the international cut, which is the one I'm familiar with, it still has the ending where he's in S-Mart. And obviously there's a director's cut, which is even longer. And I think the windmill scene in that, like we mentioned earlier, with all the little mini ashes, is longer in that. I mean, it makes more sense because it cuts back in stuff that it flows better and makes more sense, because there's a couple of scenes where once you've seen what actually happens, that doesn't make a lot of sense with that bit removed. But I think it almost goes on too long, which is probably why it was cut down originally.
Right.
But yeah,
which is why I might have to do this video.
Quite. So anyway,
and although I didn't like it, obviously the remake came out in 2013, so that is obviously very readily available out there. Do you own it? Okay.
I do. Yeah, of course. Because I didn't hate it as much as you did. And there is a director's cut of that as well, actually, which I think Film 4 rather showed it accidentally. I think when they first aired it a few years ago, they accidentally showed the director's cut, which wasn't for a while wasn't available to buy anywhere. It was then, I think, released in Germany, I think, on Blu-ray, and it's recently been released in the US on Blu-ray. Not over here yet, but last time Film 4 showed it, I recorded it to see if it was the director's cut, and it was. So if you do see them showing it, then give it a go, and it might well be the longer cut, which I think It has more gore in it. I think there's some shots that are in the trailer that aren't in the original cut, but they are back in this director's cut version, and there's some more character stuff in there as well.
I
So
don't think I could sit through any more of that.
no, I mean it's not particularly longer, but maybe 5 minutes, so
Right.
it's not a lot of difference. But there's a little bit more in there.
So that was the Evil Dead franchise, and as always, if you enjoyed the video, then let us know in the comments below.
Yep, click the subscribe button up there if you've liked what you watched, and there's some other videos to check out over there. Come and join us on Twitter and Facebook, and join us again next week for another one.